Hello and welcome to episode 21 of Matchett and the Other Guy. And you join Kevin and me at my home on the banks of Lake Wylie in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Kevin, our gentle listener, may be aware of a different tone and resonance to our recording today, and there's a very good reason for that. Can you explain what it is?
I think their keen ear has probably picked up on that we are inside today due to weather being not only cold outside, but it's also quite rainy and damp.
Yes, and although your two genial hosts are prepared to wrap up warm and forego the dry weather for the rain to make our wonderful recordings down here on the lake, our electronics are particularly sensitive to the humidity. And by our extensive electronics, I'm really referring to my laptop here, which last time we tried it was covered in moisture and it didn't really want to work for a couple of days after. So we brought it inside because we think it's the safest thing to do. Howsoever, here we are, Kevin, episode 21. We're still up and running. What are we talking about today?
Well, quite often we've discussed entertainment and different things like that. So I thought we would do a little sub-discussion today on so maybe some of our favorite actors and actresses that we've enjoyed throughout the years.
Oh, yes, okay. So films, actors and actresses. Yes, all right. Well, you start us off then. What is one of your favorite films or actors and actresses that you've enjoyed over the years?
Well, one that I go back way back with is Kurt Russell. I've always liked Kurt Russell's work.
Yeah.
And that really, I say it goes back definitely to when he was a teenager, I guess, and he was doing those Disney movies.
Yeah.
He did like The Computer That Wore Tennis Shoes and The Barefoot Executive and those type of things. And there were all these live action fun Disney movies. I think they must have been filmed in the late 60s,
yes,
somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And they were generally shown on like The Wild World, or what would they show? That show that would be on Sunday nights, The Wonderful World of Disney, I think it was.
I wasn't here, obviously.
It was, again, you were much more limited in children's programming back in the day. And it would be like a movie that they show on that. And inevitably, they were at some college campus and the dean or whatever was, the nemesis, and they were trying to get something pulled over. And another funny thing, it almost seemed like every one of those movies culminated in a chase scene where they were driving in one of those Myers-Manx type dune buggies. And going under bridges, and they may have a ladder coming out of the top of it or something. But it also got me really into, thinking I'll have a dune buggy as my first car one day.
It was obviously a formula that worked very well for Disney in this example. And as we've chatted about before, once you hit on something that works, thinking of all the spin-off from Star Wars success, you're going to follow it. And I know the films you're talking about now are pre-Star Wars, but that idea of once you hit a formula that works, I always remember a football coach, I think it was John Madden, he said once, I know we're getting off topic already, but we do that a lot, don't we? He said something like, you don't want to change a play that works until the defense stops it from working.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, isn't it? Like, you don't want to change a formula for a movie until the audience decides they've had enough of it, then come up with something else.
Well, it's kind of like the old, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly that. It's exactly that.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many of those they did. I have to kind of go back on his filmography and see how many of those movies. And they were always, maybe it was even the same college. Maybe they were like just a different story, and they were still at the same named college or something like that when they were doing their hijinks.
They were all set in the same college. It could have been.
Because a lot of times the same actors maybe were playing the dean or the head of whatever at the college, or the science professor or something like that.
I do remember. My life was entirely different. My young life. Early years over in England, but I do remember seeing many of those Disney movies, and the one that always sticks in my mind was That Darn Cat.
Yep.
Why that particular movie sticks in my mind, but I do remember going to the Curzon Cinema in Loughborough, which I often used to do. We've chatted about this before, I think, and I would take myself and I'd go on the bus from home and catch the Midland Red bus into Loughborough Saturday afternoon, and always try to go to the cinema, regardless of what was showing, provided it was a U movie and they'd let me in, I'd go in and see it. And I do remember going in and I don't think there was hardly anybody in there. There was 2 or 3 other people in there, but I do remember watching That Darn Cat, yes, and having a Dalek Death Ray chocolate mint ice cream, which was my little treat of the week.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah, well, those Disney movies, they were very, very popular, weren't they? Highly successful. But in terms of actors that I've really enjoyed, I never know what we're going to be talking about before we sit down, so it's always some memories that just flash through my mind. But the one actor that always springs to my mind is Sean Connery.
Oh yeah.
I think a great actor. But what I've always admired most of all about Sean Connery's acting is he has never given any concession whatsoever to attempting to play anybody but himself. So there's no accents or anything. You remember him in The Hunt for Red October.
Oh yeah.
He was the only Russian submarine captain I've ever known.
Captain Ramius, wasn't it?
Captain Ramius with a broad Scottish brogue accent. just wonderful. This is me. This is how I'm going to play it. Like it or not, this is me.
You cast me, and here I am. So put me in a big fuzzy hat and put me on top of a sub, and we'll go.
I've turned up to the set, so let's film it. But
yeah, he's definitely one that falls into the legends category.
yeah.
Many great films and roles throughout the years.
Yes, I suppose perhaps most well known for James Bond, his role as James Bond in those movies. But again, no concession to anything. He was just Sean Connery playing Sean Connery.
Yeah, we just lost him this year. So yeah, he was always definitely a good one. Of course, it started before my time, obviously. And kind of getting back to Kurt Russell, I remember even before the Disney things, I had seen him in the reruns of, he's in one episode of Gilligan's Island. He's like a Tarzan boy, like a boy that grew up in the jungle.
Yeah.
And he's in that. And I think that, and I've seen this like on filmography reels or something like that. He did like a commercial in the early 60s where he's a little kid, and it was like a Army gun commercial.
Yeah.
And of course, look what he's gone on to ever since. And now he's you see him in the Tarantino movies, and I loved him in Death Proof. I thought he did a really good job in that. And I've just always liked him throughout the years. Is he always in a hit? No, but he's consistently good. And he's done the comedies.
Yeah.
He did, Overboard and Captain Ron. And
he strikes me, he doesn't return my calls any longer, but he always strikes me as a sort of chap that's prepared to have a go at anything and give himself to the role and play anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wants to be around the industry.
Yeah, and I think it comes across, as that he'd be, very personable in person on the off the set and stuff too.
Yes.
So, yeah. And I've always liked, his relationship with Goldie over the years has been really interesting to watch.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, wonderful. And talking about actresses, I have to say Marilyn Monroe. I'm picking on real classic starlets, movie stars, but Marilyn Monroe, most especially for me in Some Like It Hot. She just absolutely nailed that role of Sugar, and in that movie. And I've read many reports, as we all have, about how difficult she was to work with, and that she'd arrive late on set, and some scenes that should only have taken 2 minutes would sometimes take 5 hours to record because she'd fluff her lines and whatever. But everyone, I think, agrees that there was something just remarkable about the performance that she would give when she finally got it together. Just brilliant. Just so funny on camera.
Yeah, I can imagine how complicated it must be of being a somewhat prolific director, because you're getting so many different personalities in each of your projects.
Yeah.
And how they're going to handle the situation, how you're going to handle them. It sure is like almost a full-time job. Never mind trying to get the film done.
I think handling actors and actresses, yes, that must be an incredibly thankless task until you see the work that's produced at the end of it.
Yeah. And everybody brings a different set of skills to the table and how they, apply those skills.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of brings me up to one of the things I always really respect actors, and this is a prime example of one, is Christopher Walken. He doesn't take it. I love the ones that don't take themselves too seriously. He is more than happy to do the silliest thing on Saturday Night Live or play in a comedy or whatever, but he's such a very accomplished, acclaimed actor that does really amazing things. And it's kind of funny, I was thinking back too, when I was thinking about talking about this, it's hard to remember one where he was the main character.
Right.
He's always supporting. He's high up. He's a high-level actor. But other than, I thought about The Dead Zone. He did the Dead Zone, in the early 80s.
Yes.
But I can't, beyond that, it's hard to remember a movie where he was the lead. but of course he's part of the later legend crop in Hollywood that's done so many great things.
And Walken has a very distinctive voice. I mean, as soon as you hear that, you could never mistake him for anybody else on set, right? You know instantly who it is. Yeah.
So he's a prime example of that. And then another one I like, and I like the one I tend to enjoy seeing ones that aren't like your Tom Hanks or George Clooney's, these Tom Cruise, that are consistently doing great work throughout the years, and they may not be the lead, they may be, but for example, Eric Stoltz. I always liked Eric Stoltz.
Okay.
I loved Some Kind of Wonderful, Mask. Those are two movies I could watch anytime. Anytime they're on, I can watch them. And he did a lot. He was in Pulp Fiction. There's of course a big role there. Small role in a big movie.
You're a big Tarantino fan, I think, are you?
I don't live and die by Tarantino's movies, but and I don't think I'm not sure if I haven't seen The Hateful Eight yet.
Yes,
I'm trying to think. I might not have seen all of them. There's a few that I probably have not.
I have seen The Hateful Eight, and it was that screening when that first came out. Now I'm thinking it was nearly 10 years ago. I mean, time moves so fast.
It could have been, yeah.
But I do remember it was on Panoramic Vision, and there was only a few cinemas around the country that was showing it in some real wide vision, 70mm wide vision, I guess it would be. But there was a few projectors that were around that could show that movie. There was one cinema in Charlotte that was showing it, and I thought, kind of cool. I'll go and see that, see what that's like. But I'll tell you what, I couldn't get into the movie. There was such a demand to get into that. And I had to wait, I think it was 3 days before I could buy a ticket to get in.
Yeah, I don't remember the fervor around it.
Yes,
it's good that it was, I guess.
Well, I don't think it was so much the movie itself as just the format that it was playing in. And there was a lot of interest around that. But the one or two things that I do remember about that movie, The Hateful Eight, that always stick in my mind was the wonderful scene in the snow right at the very beginning. You haven't seen it, so we shouldn't really talk about it. But I do have the DVD copy of the movie. And I may have said to you this before, I'm not going to watch it until there's really heavy snowfall in Charlotte and I can sit here in my...
The perfect, proper setting to watch.
That's right. See the snow outside and then see the opening to The Hateful Eight. But yes, I mean, Tarantino has made some very memorable movies. But I do like Kill Bill 1 and 2.
I do too. That's
talked about
in my top
before.
5 of Tarantino's.
Yes.
I like that pair. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like Lucy Liu's character of O-Ran Ishii, the Japanese-American assassin.
Yep.
And the crazy 88 crew that she's walking around with. I mean, I think that's just a wonderful piece of Pulp Fiction comic drama that Tarantino, it's something that he does so well. And the other thing I really like about Tarantino, we should be talking about actors and actresses, but Tarantino as a director, I love the dialogue. He really does give himself that dialogue. And when you hear a long exchange between actors in Tarantino's movies, you really do have to listen to every word that's being spoken. I remember that long scene towards the end of Kill Bill 2 between Carradine and Uma Thurman in the hotel in Mexico, and it's they're talking about what truth means and how their life has played out, and whether or not Uma Thurman's character, is she a really good character, or did she really actually enjoy being an assassin? And then it's a wonderful exchange. But I like the dialogue that Tarantino puts together.
Yeah, I still remember at the time when this came out, my roommate was one that I had in college, and just, always was roommated with him. And he came home and had just seen Reservoir Dogs, and he was like, "This is a game changer." He said, "We've got to go back and see this again." So he took me to that one. That, of course, was a big introduction, but he was like, "This is unbelievable, this film." And it ended up being one of my top favorites in his list. But of course, it had Harvey Keitel, who's if we go back to the actors, he's done a fantastic career. But again, I couldn't think of a movie he's led other than what was it? What was that? There was one, The Good Cop or The Good Lieutenant or The Bad Lieutenant or something like that. Yeah. There was one that I think he had the lead in, but generally he's supporting and does an amazing job. And he sometimes doesn't have that big a role in, like in Pulp Fiction. He had a very relatively small role in it, but it was very memorable.
And I get the impression, but hey, what do I know? But I just get the impression that if Tarantino calls, you're not going to say no to a role, whatever he offers you.
Yeah.
You want to be in one of his movies, right? That seems to be everybody wants to be in a Tarantino movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the cast is, now, he just came on, and this is one I haven't seen, that most recent one, I guess, with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right.
So, where he got, people that he hadn't, I don't think, ever worked with before.
Yes. Yeah, remarkable stuff. Anthony Hopkins, we're thinking about actors. I've always liked him. He seems very dedicated to the art form, but the role of Hannibal Lecter, I think what he did for that character was just absolutely stunning.
Yeah. I mean, I was just we were thinking about it the other day because they've just started that new series on TV, Clarice.
Yes.
So it made you think, about it. And I
Yeah.
remember seeing the documentary on how Silence of the Lambs was really just a pet project.
Yes.
And here it became, one of the greatest films of all time. And how they say that he has one of the greatest villain entrances of all time, but yet it really wasn't him. It was the camera panning to his cell, and he's just standing there looking at you.
Yeah.
So no entrance to it at all, not even a movement.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most foreboding, introductions to a villain there ever has been.
Again, as our gentle listener is aware, I'm never aware of what we're going to talk about until we sit down here and click the microphone on and start talking. But by complete coincidence, I was watching something about Hannibal Lecter and Hopkins playing that character the other day, and he said, I never blinked once during the shots when I was playing Lecter. And I thought, well, I've never actually studied it that close, but I'm going to go back.
Now we have to go back and watch for a blink.
I'm going to go back and see whether or not that was the case. Yes, so that idea of just eye contact is such a critical part of the role, and the quiet, controlled voice, very little emotion being shown by Hopkins playing that character, just makes it all the more powerful.
And he had been quite a working actor many years before that happened. I'd have to go back on his filmography to see when he really started, but just 10 years prior to that, he was the doctor in The Elephant Man.
Yeah. Yes,
and I'm sure many things prior to that, and
Yeah.
probably a lot of stage work and stuff, I would guess. But yeah.
It's funny how sometimes these roles, I mean, I doubt very much that when Hopkins was offered that role, he thought it would turn to this iconic performance that is known throughout, will now be known forever, really, as probably the role of playing Hannibal Lecter. However, if there are any movies in the future, or if there are any more books written by, whether it's by Thomas Harris or anybody else, if that character is advanced into the future, even if those stories go back in time, I don't think anybody that's going to play that character will ever be able to live up to what Hopkins did with it. It's just become his role.
Yeah, and too, it's that's kind of funny. If you take adapted books and stuff like that, when you read them, they're whatever you in your mind. But once it's put on film, and especially if it's something iconic, then it's forever that image. Daniel Radcliffe will always be Harry Potter.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
In your vision of what he is.
Yeah. What other actors or actresses stand out in your mind?
Well, go to actresses. I always like Sissy Spacek a lot.
Yeah.
Because she's in two movies that I will watch anytime, and one of them, especially that way, is I will watch Coal Miner's Daughter anytime it comes on. It's hard to call it a cult classic with me, but or a guilty pleasure, because it really was a great movie. I think it was up for a few Oscars, but I can watch that anytime, and she does such a fantastic job as Loretta Lynn. And then I loved her in Carrie too.
Yeah.
And she's done a lot of other great things, many things throughout the years, but those are the two that really cemented my fandom of her work.
Yes. I've just been thinking now, when we're having this conversation, you just mentioned Radcliffe, but Alan Rickman's portrayal of Snape in the Harry Potter movies, I thought, was another wonderful role. I can't imagine anybody being able to better that performance, that incredible aloofness, for want of a better description, of Rickman playing that role, sort of looking down on the kids with such disdain, that I'm having to be here. Why am I having to teach these urchins this wonderful magical power of potion making that I've got? But I think he absolutely nailed that role. Wonderful. Another wonderful actor that we've now lost, of course.
Yeah. I just introduced. Actually, my wife hadn't seen it, and then my daughter, of course, had never seen it. But we watched Galaxy Quest.
Oh yeah.
Within the past few weeks.
Yeah.
Of course, he did a really good job in that. But that was kind of that, bringing that snooty British kind of
Yes.
thing to that role, which was not really, had comedic moments, but and then of course going all the way back to when we first were at least I was introduced to him was Hans Gruber and Die Hard, of course.
Yeah.
Which we're going to jump tracks slightly, but that goes back to being the greatest movie experience I ever had was Die Hard.
Really?
Well, my friends worked at the theater, and I don't know if we've maybe touched on this before, but many times we'd see all the movies for free because we were all friends and they worked there and we could come and go. But they would show the movie the night before. The projectionists had to review it to make sure there's no tear in anything bad in the film. Yeah. So they would make sure it's ready for the next day. Yeah. And a lot of times they'd have us come with them. And so he's like, come hang out, and it'd be like a row of 8 of us or something like that. And I still remember I'd come in from working at the restaurant, and they called the house and said, "Hey, we're gonna do the midnight movie of Die Hard tonight. Come on out." And I was like, "Oh, I'm so tired." And they're like, no, come on. So I went on out, and we watched it. And there was a big crowd, too. There was a big bunch of people for some reason that night. And I didn't expect much because you're like, this is, the guy from Blind Date, whatever, And I just remember being blown. You were sucked into that story. Yeah. And for that 2 hours or whatever, you were going down the hallways with McClane. I mean, that was unbelievable. And we just came out just stunned at how good it was.
I mean, the movie's had a much more dramatic effect on you than it has on me. I mean, I watch it and I'm happy to sit there and sit through it, but I'm aware that you and many, many, many others are absolutely fascinated by the movie. Now, where do you stand on Die Hard being a Christmas movie?
Boy, yeah, we're going to have a divisive.
Well, I mean, clearly it's not really, but yes, it is. So what is it about that movie that makes it a Christmas movie?
The fact that it's set at Christmas.
Yeah.
And this has only come up in the past, definitely 5 to 10 years. Or something.
I'd say about 10 years is when I've.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those. I think you just pick it the way you want, but it's not consistently shown all over cable at Christmas either.
Yeah.
And I recall, I mean, it hadn't been that many years that Home Alone has been shown a lot at Christmas, which it kind of makes sense being a Christmas movie. Because, it's a holiday, it's snowy, they've gone away for Christmas, and he has to decorate the tree by himself, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it didn't seem like it seemed like it had to take a number of years to take a foothold into being a Christmas movie. So I think Die Hard may be the same thing. Give it another 10 years and let it evolve to where it's starting to be one. I mean, the ones that made sense, obviously, were immediately the Jim Carrey Grinch was going to be, an immediate Christmas hit, watched every year, all over cable. Same with Elf, those type of movies.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the classics that we have to see every year that have been around for decades upon decades.
Yes, and I think, personally, the first Potter movie, The Philosopher's Stone as the book and The Sorcerer's Stone as the movie and the American edition of the book. But I think that wonderful Christmas party scene in that first Potter movie will make that a Christmas movie as well. It
just has a good feel.
Yeah, it has a good
with
feel.
With the snowy and they're in the mountain, the majestic mountains around the castle and all that. It fits.
It fits. Yes, it is a curious, elusive something that makes a movie a Christmas movie or not a Christmas movie, and that's certainly the case for me.
Wasn't the movie The Ref? Isn't that right at Christmas? And you don't see that all over the place either, but.
You say give it 10 years and see what happens.
Who knows? I think it was critically acclaimed. I don't think I've ever really seen it. I think I have it on DVD, but never watched it. So maybe I have some something I have to do by next Christmas and check that one out.
Yeah.
But there's just funny movies that are set at Christmas that just don't take hold.
Sure.
And they may even be a Christmas, made to be very Christmassy, but they didn't pick up with the audience, and nobody really wants to see them over and over again.
Yes, that is another elusive element of movie making and books and everything else in theatre is just because you make it for the intention of being a Christmas movie or whatever it would be doesn't necessarily mean it's going to hit with the audience and be remembered.
Yeah, I don't think It's a Wonderful Life. I don't think was put out as a Christmas movie.
Really? Yeah,
I'd have to look back and see. I mean, I know it did not do well when it came out, but it might have hit theaters in June or July or something. I couldn't say for sure. It may have been. more toward that time. But the Christmas kind of comes in toward the end. It's a long story of going with George Bailey through life until you get to the kind of the Christmassy part at the end.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that it was designed to be that. I mean, obviously the 51 Dickens A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Any of those are obviously based on it, and it's probably was put out at Christmas time, you'd think. So
Yeah, I'd have to think so.
and there's many versions of those, and they keep coming.
Yes.
So which I could see them doing that.
Yes, well, I mean, probably veering somewhat off the movies, but I think A Christmas Carol by Dickens is a wonderful story. I mean, I could just see its success instantly. I think it was an instant success. It was an instant classic as soon as Dickens got it printed.
I would hope so. Yeah, it is.
First edition was sold out, I think, pretty much within the day of its release. We need more copies. We need more copies. And great story, great story to that. But I don't know an awful lot about Dickens. I mean, I've read something of his life, and I'm aware of some of it, But I think when Dickens was working on A Christmas Carol, he knew instantly as he was writing it, he'd got it. He'd locked himself away in the garret and it was writing, and he'd getting these characters together, and he could tell instantly. And they was trying to get finance together to get the book published, and as soon as it hit the shops, it was sold out. So it was a great. But as we see with the movie and TV adaptations of it, it's a wonderful story and still is.
Yeah.
Talking of which, brings me to Bill Murray. I know Bill Murray.
Scrooged.
Played Scrooged.
Which I love. I saw that in the theater. This is back when my friends worked at the theater, so I saw it at least twice in the theater, maybe 3 times. I can't remember.
Yes, well, Scrooged the movie with Bill Murray is probably not going to be a great classic, remembered as a great classic, but I do enjoy him playing that role. But I do enjoy watching Bill Murray at work. The way that he just plays these characters that are just so grumpy about life unfolding around them. And he pretty much plays himself in every character. He doesn't really shift an awful lot, does he?
Yeah, exactly. But like I say, he's had a very, and we enjoy seeing him. So in fact, we just had Groundhog Day on the other day. Just happened to be on cable, and it was on. Gosh, I haven't sat and watched it in a while, so I watched part of it and moved on. But I could always watch Bill and stuff.
Yeah, Groundhog Day to me, wonderful film, and most especially the start. I think once again when he's playing, the weatherman, and he's so grumpy with what's happening around him, he has to go and be a part of this wonderful celebration. Does not want to be involved in it at all. Strikes me that he's just playing himself in that role there. It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
Where do you stand with Stripes? The movie that seemed to be a movie of two halves. Like the first half of the movie was very different to the second half of the movie.
That's funny you mentioned that. I remember vividly when I finally saw, because when it came out, I was too young to see it. I definitely wasn't going to get to see it in the theater because it was R, wasn't it?
I can't remember.
But anyway, and this is back, they didn't show as much on cable and stuff like that.
It's a very innocent film if it was R-rated, I must say. But times change.
Yeah. I don't think I could have gotten in, but back then, you were lucky you'd get a free HBO weekend every once in a while. Like, my parents, there was no way they was going to get HBO. No way. But the cable company would have a free weekend occasionally, and if, we found out about people our age found out about it, it's like unedited movies for like 48 hours, 72 hours. So I always had a TV in my room anyway, so I'd stay up later than they would. So fortunately, that was one of those that came on, and I got to watch it all the way through. And I still vividly remember once they finished all the boot camp stuff and they started off on the mission, I was like, I had no idea there was this whole thing with the RV and going to, did they go to Germany or what was it?
It was like,
Italy or Germany or
Austria, somewhere, up in the mountains somewhere, absolutely.
So I'm exactly thinking what you are. It just, this whole half of it took off with a storyline that I had no idea even existed until the end.
I have no idea what happened to that movie, if that was always the original intention, or something changed halfway through principal photography, or I don't know, but it seems it's almost like part one and part two.
Yeah.
As you say, part one is all happening at the boot camp and getting to the point where they're passing out for the passing out parade, and then this odd, curious other story unfolds after it, which seems to have almost no connection to what happened at the start of it. Yes, it's a very curious movie, but I do like the first half of Stripes. I'm not a fan of the second half of Stripes.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. And another movie that's very much like that is Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
You go through the whole boot camp.
The training
And once that's over, it becomes a whole
Yeah.
different story. And I will admit that normally, if I have time or it's coming on, I'll watch that first part and then I'll just move on to something else.
Yes.
I rarely have watched. I've maybe seen the last half of Full Metal Jacket once.
Yes, I'm with you, most especially with Stripes. And I do remember, to me, the line of that film has got to be from Sergeant Holker when Francis is unloading on him, keep your hands off my stuff, blah, blah, blah. And Sergeant Holker says, lighten up, Francis. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just become such an iconic line that we use now, removed from the movie. If someone's really annoying us, I occasionally use it on Twitter if someone's writing something that's just annoying, lighten up, Francis.
Yeah, my favorite one still is when they arrive and get off the bus. Larroquette's, they're all done up to the nines with his ascot and everything, and John Candy looks at him and goes, "What's up, Eisenhower? I hope this is the mess hall." That's my line.
And then immediately after we had hey look, we're walking, and I hope they go marching along. Yeah, it's terrific. And talking about movies in two halves, so this is an absolute classic movie I'm about to mention now, but the second half of Jaws.
Oh, once they're on the boat?
When the orca set sail, I think
Yeah.
that's an entirely different movie.
True.
And I can watch Jaws over and over, but I will be doing something else during the first half of the movie, not giving it my full attention. But towards the start of the second half, as soon as they leave Amity and set off on the orca, I'm glued to it all the way through.
And the great thing about Jaws is, and I'm not sure what the number is here, but you never see the shark for how long? Is it 40-something minutes into the film and stuff, which I think is fantastic.
It's a great
You're
thing.
more scared of what you don't know than what you do know, and that's what it was. The unknown. What is it? Or what size is it? And all
Yes, and it's also something I think Alien did exactly the same thing.
True.
Right? It's like, don't show it as if you can not show the alien, don't show the alien. For two reasons. One is you're more afraid of what you don't see, what you think might be there, but you can't see it, you can't understand it, and also the special effects and the costumes are probably not quite as good as we wanted. So if we can not show it, if we can not show the mechanical shark potentially breaking down for the 15th time that day, don't show.
Bruce is down again.
Bruce is down again. Exactly the same. And I think Alien copied the same idea. It's don't show it. Keep it.
And they were separated by about 4 years. So that late 70s was they were doing some really innovative stuff with that kind of thinking and stuff.
I also think in a completely different way, but the way in The Exorcist, the conversations between the priest and the demon that was possessing the young girl, that those conversations may be more in the book that I remember reading years ago now, is that it was written in a way that you're never quite sure, the priest is never quite sure if the demon is real or if it's just made up, and there's just this sort of, you're never sure what's happening, and the idea of you're never sure what's happening, I think is a great thing, a great tool in terms of writing and in terms of movie making. Hitchcock does it all the time. Don't show it and then make it twisted. Are you sure this is happening, or is it this is really happening? Yeah. How are you on Hitchcock movies? You a Hitchcock fan?
What have I seen? I've of course seen Psycho, and Rear Window was his, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think yes, I think it was.
I've seen Rear Window. That might be it. I feel very remiss in not seeing more of them.
The Birds was one of his great classics.
I know of it, but I've never seen Tippi Hedren.
Yes, and that's another movie. How to make your average crow appear to be a threat. How do you do that? Well, the idea is really not to show them and then just to show them all at once and then show a flock of birds flying, but rather than just one. It's a difficult thing to pull off, but I mean, Hitchcock was clearly aware of that when he started that movie. Made it work. It was another great classic.
Well, I saw something that was very similar to what we're talking about, and I think they interviewed some people or something like that, and it was like saying in the shower, describe the shower scene in Psycho, and they said, all the stabbing going into and then like at the end they go, no, actually there was not one stab shown. It's all in your head.
It was all in your head.
It was all, what you perceived was that you could hear it
Yeah.
and hear different things, but they never showed one, wound in the whole thing. And look what it's become.
Look what it's become. Yes, I do remember reading Hitchcock used chocolate sauce. Or
Yeah, I think it's
something,
Hershey
right?
syrup.
Yeah, Hershey syrup because it looked better on camera.
Yeah, and it's in black and white.
So yeah. But that brings up another aspect of movie making, is to be aware of shooting in black and white, not just because of the technical limitations of the time, but how can you best use that format of black and white, and using the Hershey syrup for blood is a classic example of doing that. It just looks so realistic.
Yeah, and if you're filming in color, there had to be a whole other solution to it somewhere.
Yeah.
And who knows what they would have had back then. Now we've gotten, the special effects guys have gotten so amazing these days.
Talking about, I mean, we're jumping backwards now, but it doesn't matter at all. But Some Like It Hot went through exactly that same stage of the decision was made to shoot the movie in black and white, because when Curtis and Lemon were put into drag with makeup on, they looked so awful and unbelievable in those characters that the decision was made, we're not going to do this in colour. Marilyn Monroe seemingly had in her contract, it was stated that all movies with Marilyn Monroe must be shot in colour from whatever that point was that the contract was inked. And they had to convince Marilyn that this was not going to work, and so they showed her rushes of Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis with the makeup in when they're playing their drag characters. And she said, "Yeah, absolutely.
We need something to soften this effect.
This ain't going to work for us." Yeah, I'll agree to shoot this movie in black and white, but thank goodness they did. I have a feeling there may be a colorized version of that movie available, but I've never seen it and don't really want to.
No,
not that seeing movies, that have been colorized, I don't feel that doesn't really affect in terms of, look, the original still exists. It's like colorizing photographs. My goodness, why would you do this? Well, the original still exists, so either enjoy it or it produces more detail that wasn't there before. I get all that. A lot of historical photographs show a lot more detail if they're in color, but we're not destroying the original black and white, so we haven't lost anything. You can look at it whichever way you like. But I do believe in Some Like It Hot. I think it was just it looked. I've seen some of the color stills from Some Like It Hot, and I've seen the movie in black and white, and I've been fortunate enough to see it on the big screen in black and white, and I don't really want to see that any other way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Keep the purity.
Yeah. Well, we better wrap this that soon went, didn't it?
I'm telling you, once we get going, it may not stay on track, but we'll get going.
Well, gentle listener, I hope you like that, and if that has encouraged you in any way, as it will do us now, to go to Google and research some of the points we've just talked about and check on those. Remember, we can't guarantee we're always going to get our facts right when we just sit down and talk, but if we want to go back and check the authenticity of some of those facts, well, that's what it's all about. We better say goodbye, Kevin.
All right, we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye.